Nancy Rodriguez thought her days of classified operations were over. After 30 years serving her country as a Navy intelligence officer, she'd traded military briefings for morning coffee orders at her quiet coastal diner. The Anchor's Rest had become her sanctuary, a place where the most dangerous thing was burning toast. But on this Tuesday evening, as autumn rain drummed against salt-stained windows, a stranger would walk through her door and speak 3 words that would shatter her peaceful retirement forever. Before we dive into Nancy's story, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from tonight. Are you a fellow veteran? Have you ever had your quiet life suddenly turned upside down? Now, let's see how Nancy's ordinary Tuesday became anything but ordinary. The coffee maker gurgled to life at 5:30, same as every morning for the past 8 years. Nancy Rodriguez wiped down the counter with practiced movements, her calloused hands steady despite her 72 years. The Anchor's Rest smelled of fresh coffee and yesterday's apple pie. Outside, seagulls called over the harbor where fishing boats bobbed in the early light. "Morning, Nancy." Frank pushed through the door, his veteran's cap tilted at the same angle as always. Korean War, Purple Heart. Never talked about it much. "Morning, Frank." "Usual. You know it." She poured his black coffee without looking, muscle memory guiding her hand. Frank settled into his corner booth, unfolding his newspaper with a satisfied grunt. The bell above the door chimed twice more. Martha from the post office. Bob, who ran the tackle shop. Her people. Her rhythm. The morning rush came and went. Fishermen grabbing coffee before dawn patrols. Shop owners opening up. Tourists asking about the best lobster rolls. Nancy moved between tables, refilling cups, taking orders, making small talk. Easy conversations about weather and baseball scores. "Nancy, you ever miss the excitement?" Martha asked, sliding her empty plate across the counter. "What excitement?" "You know, the Navy. All that traveling." Nancy dried a coffee mug slowly. "This is exciting enough for me." Martha laughed. "Serving pie and coffee? Good pie. Good coffee. Good people." Nancy set the clean mug on the shelf. "That's plenty of excitement for one lifetime." The lunch crowd thinned out by 3. Nancy flipped the sign to "closed" and climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment above the diner. Her afternoon ritual. Shower. Change clothes. Short nap if her joints were aching. Then back downstairs for the dinner shift. Evening brought a different crowd. Quieter. Couples sharing dessert. Families with young kids coloring on paper placemats. Nancy liked the evening shift better. More time to talk. Less rushing around. Rain started around 7, drumming against the windows that faced the harbor. Only 6 tables occupied. Perfect. Nancy hummed while she cleaned the coffee machine, a tune she couldn't quite remember the name of. The bell chimed. She looked up to see a man in his 50s, broad shoulders filling out a dark jacket. His hair was silver at the temples, his posture military straight. He chose table 6, the one by the window overlooking the water. Nancy grabbed her order pad and walked over. Something about him seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. Happened sometimes with customers. Small town meant seeing the same faces for years. Evening. "What can I get you?" He looked up from the menu. His eyes were pale blue, steady. The kind of eyes that had seen things. Decided things. She'd known eyes like that. "Coffee black. And whatever pie you recommend." "Apples fresh." "Made it this morning." "Apple it is." Nancy wrote down the order, started to turn away. "Ma'am?" She stopped. "Yes." He folded the menu carefully, set it aside. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but clear enough to cut through the rain drumming on glass. "Operation Neptune lives." The order pad slipped from Nancy's fingers. It hit the floor with a soft slap. Her coffee-stained apron suddenly felt too tight around her chest. The familiar diner sounds, rain, quiet conversations, the hum of the refrigerator, seemed to fade. Those 3 words. Words she hadn't heard in 27 years. Words that weren't supposed to exist anymore. Words that had been buried so deep she'd almost convinced herself they'd never been real. She stared at the man. Really looked at him now. The jawline. The way he held his shoulders. The small scar above his left eyebrow. Morrison. Jake Morrison. Lieutenant, back then. SEAL Team 6. You okay, Han? Called Mrs. Patterson from Table 3. Nancy blinked. Bent down slowly to pick up her order pad. Her hands weren't steady anymore. Fine, she managed. Just clumsy. But she wasn't fine. The safe world she'd built in this little coastal town was tilting sideways. The man at Table 6 knew things. Dangerous things. Things that were supposed to stay buried with good people who died keeping secrets. She straightened up, met his eyes again. He was watching her carefully, waiting. I'll get that coffee, she said. Her voice sounded normal. 27 years of practice at sounding normal when everything was falling apart. But as she walked back to the counter, Nancy Rodriguez felt the weight of her old life settling back onto her shoulders like a coat she'd never quite learned how to take off. The coffee maker was still gurgling. The rain was still falling. But everything had changed. Nancy's hands shook as she poured the coffee. Black liquid sloshed over the rim, staining the white saucer. She set the pot down harder than necessary. Steady, she whispered to herself. The same words she'd used in briefing rooms when younger officers started to panic. When missions went sideways and people needed someone to think clearly. She carried the coffee to Table 6, keeping her face blank. Jake Morrison hadn't moved. Still sat with his back to the wall, eyes scanning the room every few seconds. Old habits. Here's your coffee. She set it down carefully. Pie will be right out. Nancy. His voice was quiet, meant only for her. We need to talk. I don't know what you think you know, but... Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. Naval Intelligence. Service number 447-2851. You ran point on Operation Neptune, March through August, 27 years ago. The words hit her like cold water. Nancy glanced around the diner. Mrs. Patterson was reading a magazine. Young couple by the window sharing a sundae. Nobody listening. That person doesn't exist anymore. She does tonight. Nancy walked back to the counter, cut a slice of apple pie with mechanical precision. Her mind was racing, pulling up files she'd locked away decades ago. Morrison, Jake. SEAL Team 6. Good soldier. Followed orders. Never asked questions he shouldn't ask. But he was asking them now. She brought him the pie, sat down across from him without being invited. Something she'd never do with a regular customer. But Jake Morrison wasn't a regular customer. Talk, she said. Jake took a sip of coffee, nodded approval. Good coffee. Don't what? Don't make small talk. Don't pretend this is normal. You said 3 words that could get us both killed. So talk. Jake set down his cup. You remember Tommy Brennan? Nancy's chest tightened. Of course. Car accident. 3 weeks ago. Pennsylvania highway. Lost control in the rain, they said. People have accidents. Not Tommy. Tommy could drive a Humvee through a hurricane. Jake pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo. This was his car. Nancy looked at the twisted metal, the blackened frame. Looks like an accident. Look closer. She did. Saw what he meant. The burn pattern was wrong. Too concentrated. Too hot. Maria Santos, Jake continued. House fire in Arizona. Last month. Nancy remembered Maria. Explosives expert. Careful with everything she touched. Maria would never leave a gas burner on. Fire started in 3 places at once. Accelerant. Could be insurance fraud. Could be. Jake swiped to another photo. Bobby Chin. Drowned in his backyard pool. 2 weeks ago. Bobby was a strong swimmer. Olympic-level strong. Plus he had a head injury the coroner missed the first time. Someone pointed it out anonymous-like. Nancy stared at the photos. 3 faces from her past. Good people who'd risked everything for their country. Who'd kept secrets that mattered. Who else knows, she asked. About Neptune? Officially? Nobody. The files were buried so deep they don't exist. Unofficially. 12 people went on that mission. 3 are dead. You make 4 still breathing. 8 others scattered across the country. Nancy did the math. 7. 8 others. Jake's face darkened. Got a call this morning. Danny Reeves. Heart attack in his sleep. 4 dead. Nancy felt something cold settle in her stomach. Danny was 35. Marathon runner. Coroner found traces of potassium chloride. Untraceable if you don't know to look for it. The diner felt too small suddenly. Too many windows. Too many ways in. Nancy found herself cataloging exit routes, checking sight lines. Skills she hadn't used in years coming back like riding a bicycle. Someone's hunting us, she said. Someone who knows things they shouldn't know. Details about Neptune that were never written down. Never shared. Nancy thought about that. Operation Neptune had been off the books from day one. Plausible deniability for everyone involved. The kind of mission that never happened, even when it saved lives. How many people did we bring home? She asked. 37 hostages. 12 embassy staff. All alive because of what we did. And now someone wants us dead for doing it. Jake nodded. Question is why? And why now? Nancy stood up, walked to the coffee pot. Refilled his cup without asking. Bought herself time to think. 37 hostages. 12 embassy workers. 49 people who got to go home to their families because a team of Americans did their job. Who's funding this? She asked. Don't know yet. But whoever it is has serious resources. Professional killers. Inside information. Patience to make it look accidental. Any idea what triggered it? Could be anything. Political climate. Election year. Someone covering tracks. Nancy walked back to the table. Outside, the rain was getting heavier. Streetlights reflected off puddles like broken glass. Why come to me? She asked. Because you were the smartest person on that team. You saw patterns nobody else saw. Made connections that saved all our lives. That was a long time ago. Some things don't change. Jake finished his coffee. Someone's coming for you, Nancy. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But they're coming. Nancy looked around her diner. The life she'd built. The peace she'd earned. All threatened by ghosts from a mission most people didn't even know had happened. What do you want from me? Help me stop them before they finish the job. Nancy was quiet for a long moment. Outside, thunder rumbled over the harbor. I'll need to make some calls, she said finally. Nancy flipped the open sign to closed and locked the front door. Her remaining customers had left quietly, sensing something had changed. The diner felt different now. Less safe. Help me with these, she said, pointing to the chairs stacked on tables. Jake started pulling chairs down. You're closing early. Some conversations need privacy. They worked in silence, Nancy's mind already shifting into operational mode. 27 years of retirement didn't erase 30 years of training. She moved efficiently, checking window locks, pulling blinds closed. Tell me about the accidents, she said. Details. Jake sat at the counter while Nancy poured herself coffee. Her first cup of the evening. She needed the caffeine. Tell me first. Pennsylvania Turnpike, mile marker 247. Rainy night, no witnesses. Car went through the guardrail, rolled 4 times, caught fire. Skid marks. None. Like he never tried to brake. Nancy sipped her coffee. Brake lines cut. Investigators didn't check. Assumed driver error. Maria's house fire? Started in her kitchen, living room, and bedroom simultaneously. Gas leak plus electrical short, they said. But Maria was paranoid about gas. Checked her connections every month. Nancy walked to her office behind the counter. Small space, cramped with file cabinets and restaurant supplies. She pulled out a yellow legal pad, started writing. Bobby Chin? Pool party at his house. Everyone inside watching the game. Bobby went out to clean the pool, never came back. They found him at the bottom, unconscious. Head injury? Blunt force trauma. Coroner said he slipped, hit his head on the concrete. Nancy wrote it all down. Patterns emerging already. Danny Reeves? Heart attack in his sleep. His wife found him in the morning. Young wife. New wife. Married 6 months ago. Nancy looked up from her notes. What do you know about her? Nothing yet. But I'm thinking we should. Nancy tore off the top sheet, handed it to Jake. Call these numbers. Carefully. Jake looked at the list. 7 phone numbers, no names. Who are they? People who might still be breathing. While Jake made calls, Nancy walked to her laptop on the desk. Ancient machine barely ran, but it worked. She opened a browser, typed in an address she hadn't used in years. Government portal, buried deep in bureaucratic websites. The page loaded slowly. Login screen appeared. Nancy typed, Phoenix 7441. Password prompt. She hesitated. Using this login would send signals to people who monitored such things. Let them know Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez was back online after years of silence. No choice now. She typed, Neptune rising. Access granted. Nancy. Jake's voice was tight. Got through to 3 of them. 2 aren't answering. The 3 you reached? Scared. Real scared. Lisa Martinez in Texas says someone's been watching her house. Following her to work. Nancy scrolled through classified databases, her old clearance still somehow active. What about the others? Carl Washington in Florida. Says his dog was poisoned last week. That couldn't explain it. And the 3rd. Sarah Kim in Oregon. Someone broke into her apartment. Nothing stolen, but they went through everything. Professional job. Nancy found what she was looking for. Operation Neptune files. Most of it redacted, but enough detail remained. 12 operatives. Current status. 4 deceased. 8 living. But someone had accessed these files recently. 2 days ago. Jake, come look at this. He stood behind her chair, reading over her shoulder. Someone's been here. Someone with clearance. High-level clearance. Nancy scrolled down. Access log shows multiple visits over the past month. Can you see who? Nancy clicked on the access history. Names appeared, heavily redacted. But one wasn't completely blacked out. HW. She read. The rest is blocked. Jake leaned closer. Hawthorne. Nancy's blood went cold. Colonel Richard Hawthorne. He ran Neptune from the Pentagon. You think he's the leak? I think he's the only person with access to these files who knew all the details. Nancy stood up, walked to the window, peered through the blinds at the empty street. Question is why? Money? Maybe. Or maybe someone has leverage on him. Nancy's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. We know you're looking. Stop now or join your friends. She showed Jake the message. He pulled out his own phone, called someone. Marcus? It's Jake. I need a favor. Pause. Background check. Colonel Richard Hawthorne, retired. Yeah, I'll wait. Nancy walked back to her laptop, started printing everything she could access. If they were going to run, they'd need proof. Nancy, Jake said, still on the phone. You need to hear this. He put the call on speaker. Hawthorne's broke, came a voice from the phone. Lost everything in bad investments 3 years ago. House, retirement fund, everything. Been living in a small apartment in Virginia. What about income? That's the interesting part. Bank records show regular deposits from an offshore account. $50,000 a month for the past 6 months. Nancy stopped printing. Someone's been paying him. And paying him well, Jake said. Nancy's laptop chimed. New email in her secure inbox. She opened it. A photo of her diner. Taken tonight. She could see herself in the window, talking to Jake. The message below was simple. You have 12 hours. Nancy looked at Jake. We need to leave. Now. Where do we go? Nancy grabbed her car keys, stuffed the printed files into a folder. Somewhere Hawthorne doesn't know about. She headed for the back door, then stopped. Turned back to look at her diner one more time. The life she was leaving behind. Nancy? I'm okay, she said. But she wasn't. Nothing would be okay until this was finished. Nancy's truck rumbled through the darkness, headlights cutting through fog that rolled in from the ocean. Jake sat in the passenger seat, cleaning his sidearm with practiced movements. Where are we going? He asked. Safe house. Built it myself years ago. Nancy took a left turn onto a gravel road. Never told anyone about it. Not even the Navy. The road wound through pine trees, climbing away from the coast. No streetlights. No houses. Just forest and the sound of gravel under tires. You've been planning for this, Jake said. I've been planning for something. Nancy downshifted as the road got steeper. 30 years in intelligence teaches you that retirement doesn't mean the secrets retire with you. The cabin appeared in the headlights. Small, weathered wood, surrounded by trees. Nancy parked behind it, out of sight from the road. Inside, Jake whistled low. The cabin looked rustic from outside, but the interior was different. Multiple computer screens, communication equipment, maps covering one wall, a gun safe in the corner. How long have you been maintaining this place? Since I left the Navy. Nancy flipped switches, bringing the electronics to life. Old habits. She sat at the main computer, began typing rapidly. Jake watched over her shoulder as secure networks came online. Encrypted channels. Military databases. Still have your clearance? Some clearances never expire. Nancy pulled up a contact list. They just go dormant. She opened a secure messaging system, began typing to the 3 surviving Neptune operatives Jake had reached. Package compromised. Phoenix offline. Relocate immediately. Trust no one from the old chain. Within minutes, responses came back. Lisa Martinez, already moving. Someone tried to break in an hour ago. Carl Washington, on the road. They killed my neighbor's dog too. Sarah Kim, safe for now. What's the plan? Nancy leaned back in her chair. They're moving fast. Professional coordination. How many people you think we're dealing with? At least 6. Maybe more. Nancy opened another program, started cross-referencing data. This isn't random violence. It's an operation. Jake walked to the window, peered through heavy curtains. Why now? Why after 27 years? Nancy found what she was looking for. A news article from 3 months ago. Small item, buried in the international section. Look at this. Jake read over her shoulder. Embassy bombing in Jakarta. 12 dead. Same embassy we pulled people out of during Neptune. Coincidence? No such thing. Nancy highlighted key phrases. New government in power. They're investigating old American operations. Looking for people to blame. So someone's cleaning house. Someone's getting paid to clean house. Nancy opened another file. Hawthorne needs money. Foreign government needs scapegoats. Perfect match. The computer chimed. New message in the encrypted system. But not from one of their people. We have your location. Come out slowly. Nancy was already moving, grabbing weapons from the gun safe. She tossed Jake a tactical vest, pulled on her own. How did they find us? Doesn't matter. Nancy checked her rifle, muscle memory taking over. Back door leads to a trail. Follow it north for half a mile, then east to the main road. What about you? I'll slow them down. Jake grabbed her arm. Nancy, no. We stick together. This isn't a debate, sailor. Outside, car engines approached. Multiple vehicles. Nancy counted at least 3 sets of headlights through the trees. They're surrounding us. She moved to a window on the other side of the cabin. 2 more coming from the north. Jake checked his weapon. 5 vehicles. Probably 15 people. Professional hunters. They'll use thermal imaging, night vision. Standard search and destroy. Nancy's mind was working like it hadn't in years. Terrain analysis. Enemy positions. Available cover. The old training coming back sharp and clear. Remember the embassy? She asked. Jake nodded. Courtyard. 6 hostels, 2 exits. Same principle. Create confusion, exploit gaps. Nancy moved to a control panel, flipped several switches. Outside, motion sensor lights blazed to life around the cabin, temporarily blinding anyone using night vision. Now, they burst through the back door as shouts erupted from the forest. Nancy fired 3 quick shots toward the nearest vehicle, not to kill but to force heads down. By time, Jake was already at the tree line, providing cover. Nancy sprinted toward him as bullets splintered wood around her. Trails this way. They moved through the forest like they had 27 years ago. Nancy in front, reading terrain in the darkness. Jake behind, watching their 6. No words needed. The old partnership returning instantly. Behind them, voices coordinated in Russian. Foreign operatives, Nancy whispered. Confirms the Jakarta theory. They reached the main road just as sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called in the gunfire. This way. Nancy led them to a small parking area where she kept a second vehicle. Old Jeep, always gassed up and ready. As they drove away, Nancy saw flames through the trees. The cabin was burning. 30 years of preparation, Jake said. Some things are worth more than buildings. Nancy turned onto the highway. We have what matters. Information. Proof. Where to now? Nancy pulled out her phone, dialed a number she hadn't called in 8 years. Phoenix? It's Rodriguez. We need to meet. Pause. Yes, I know what time it is. This is about Neptune. Another pause. 1 hour. The old place. Nancy hung up, looked at Jake. Time to end this properly. What's the old place? Nancy smiled grimly. Where Operation Neptune began. The old warehouse sat on the Boston waterfront like a forgotten memory. 27 years ago, it had been their staging area, where Operation Neptune was born in whispered conversations and hand-drawn maps. Nancy parked behind rusted shipping containers. The building looked abandoned, windows dark, but she knew better. Phoenix would be inside, waiting. Brings back memories, Jake said. Good ones and bad ones. Nancy checked her weapon one more time. Stay alert. If this goes wrong, we might not walk out. They entered through a side door Nancy remembered. The warehouse was enormous inside, filled with shadows and echoes. Their footsteps rang off concrete floors. Rodriguez. The voice came from the darkness above. Nancy looked up to see a figure on the metal catwalk. Phoenix. Older now, silver-haired, but still moving with the careful precision of a career spy. Hello, sir. Phoenix climbed down a ladder, moving slower than Nancy remembered. 83 years old, but his eyes were still sharp. Didn't think I'd see you again, he said. Thought you were done with all this. So did I. Phoenix looked at Jake. Morrison. Heard you were still active. Yes, sir. Good. We need active right now. Phoenix walked to a table in the center of the warehouse. Maps and photographs spread across its surface. Sit. Both of you. Nancy saw her own face in one of the photos. Recent surveillance shot. Jake's face too. And the faces of the dead Neptune operatives. How long have you known? She asked. About the killings? 2 weeks. About Hawthorne. Phoenix paused. 3 years. 3 years. Jake leaned forward. Why didn't you? Do what? Arrest him? For what crime? Being broke? Taking money from strangers? Phoenix pulled out a thick file. I've been watching Richard Hawthorne since his financial troubles started. Nancy opened the file. Bank records. Phone logs. Travel receipts. A complete surveillance package. He's been selling information, she said. Small stuff at first. Retired personnel lists. Old operational summaries. Nothing that would get people killed. Phoenix sat down heavily. Then 6 months ago, someone asked for Neptune files. And he gave them up. For $500,000. Phoenix's voice was bitter. 30 years of honorable service, and he sells out his own people for money. Jake studied the photographs. Who's paying him? Indonesian military intelligence. New government wants to blame America for old problems. Make us the villains. So they're killing witnesses. Eliminating complications. Phoenix pulled out another photo. Nancy gasped. This came this morning. The photo showed Colonel Hawthorne entering Nancy's diner. Earlier tonight, before Jake arrived. He was there. Watching. Making sure the message was delivered. Nancy felt cold anger building in her chest. While she'd been serving coffee and making small talk with her customers, Hawthorne had been sitting in some corner, planning her death. Where is he now? Jake asked. Washington, D.C. hotel room near the Pentagon. Phoenix handed Nancy an address. Waiting for confirmation that you're dead. Nancy stood, paced to the window. Outside, harbor lights reflected off black water. She'd built a good life by this water. Simple. Clean. Honest. What's the plan? She asked. We take him down. Officially this time. Phoenix opened his phone, showed them a number. FBI task force. They've been building a case against foreign intelligence operations on American soil. Evidence. Everything's here. Bank records. Communication intercepts. Bodies. Phoenix gestured to the files. Enough to put Hawthorne away for life and expose the Indonesian operation. Jake looked skeptical. What about the hunters? They won't stop just because we arrest one man. They will when their funding disappears. And when their employer realizes we have proof of state-sponsored assassination on American soil. Nancy walked back to the table. Picked up Hawthorne's photo. A man she'd once trusted. Someone who'd sent her and 11 others into danger, knowing they might not come back. I want to talk to him first. Nancy. I want to look him in the eye. Ask him why. Phoenix shook his head. Too dangerous. We call the FBI, let them handle it. The FBI doesn't know Hawthorne like I do. Doesn't know his patterns, his weaknesses. Nancy folded the photo, put it in her pocket. Give me 1 hour with him. Then make your call. He's not the same man you served with. Neither am I. Jake stood. If Nancy goes, I go. Phoenix was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. 1 hour. But you wear wires. And FBI backup will be close. Deal. Phoenix handed Nancy a small device. Audio transmitter. Pin it inside your jacket. Nancy attached the wire, tested the connection. Her voice came through clearly on Phoenix's receiver. Remember, Phoenix said, Hawthorne's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. Sometimes they do smart things too. Nancy headed for the door. That's what I'm counting on. Outside, storm clouds were building over the harbor. Rain beginning to fall again, just like the night this all started. Nancy looked back at the warehouse one more time. Then she and Jake walked into the darkness, toward whatever waited in Washington. Behind them, Phoenix spoke quietly into his phone. This is Phoenix. Operation Neptune is active again. The Marriott hotel lobby was quiet at 2 in the morning. Nancy walked through the entrance like she belonged there, Jake beside her. Both wore dark suits, looking like federal agents or corporate executives. Room 1247. Phoenix had given them the number, the key card, everything they needed. Nancy stood outside Hawthorne's door, listening. Television on low volume. Ice machine humming down the hall. She knocked softly. Room service. Movement inside. Footsteps approaching the door. I didn't order anything. Nancy recognized the voice. Older, rougher, but still Richard Hawthorne. The man who'd sent her team into hell and brought them home alive. Who'd shaken her hand when she retired. Who'd sold her life for money. Complimentary fruit basket, sir. Hotel policy for VIP guests. The door opened. Hawthorne stood there in an expensive suit, graying hair perfectly styled. He looked good for a trader. His face went white when he saw Nancy. Hello, Richard. She pushed past him into the room. Jake followed, closing the door behind them. Nancy. I thought you were. Dead? Yes, I imagine you did. Nancy sat in the room's only chair. Disappoint you? Hawthorne backed toward the window. Expensive hotel room, city view. Way above a retired colonel's pension. It's not what you think. I think you sold us out for money. I think 4 good people are dead because of you. Nancy's voice was calm, conversational. Tell me I'm wrong. Hawthorne sat on the bed heavily. You don't understand the situation. Explain it to me. They had leverage. Photos. Evidence of things I'd done. What things? Hawthorne's hands shook slightly. After my wife died, I made mistakes. Got involved with the wrong people. Gambling debts. Other debts. Jake leaned against the door. So you paid your debts with our blood. It wasn't supposed to go this far. They said they just wanted information. Personnel files. Nothing operational. But it was operational. Nancy pulled out her phone, showed him photos of the dead operatives. Tommy, Maria, Bobby, Danny. Remember them? Hawthorne looked away. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But you kept taking their money. I had no choice. They owned me. Nancy stood, walked to the window. The city spread out below, millions of lights in the darkness. There's always a choice, Richard. We all made one 27 years ago. We chose to serve something bigger than ourselves. Easy words when you're not drowning in debt. I've been drowning in other things. Nancy turned to face him. Nightmares. Guilt over classified operations. Wondering if what we did mattered. It mattered. Did it? Or did we just postpone the inevitable? Save some lives so they could die later? Hawthorne met her eyes for the first time. We saved 49 people. 49 people who went home to their families. And now you've killed 4 of the people who made that possible. Hawthorne buried his face in his hands. I know what I've done. I know what I am. Nancy sat back down. The question is what happens next. They'll never stop hunting. Even if you kill me, they'll keep coming. We're not going to kill you, Richard. Nancy pulled out a small recording device. We're going to let you make this right. What do you mean? Call your Indonesian contacts. Tell them the job is done. Nancy Rodriguez and Jake Morrison are dead. Why would I? Because in about 10 minutes, FBI agents are going to arrest you for treason. Your only chance at a lighter sentence is cooperation. Hawthorne looked at the recorder. They'll know I'm lying. Not if you sell it properly. You were always good at selling things. Jake moved away from the door. Make the call, Colonel. Do one right thing. Hawthorne picked up his phone with trembling hands. Dialed a number. It's done, he said in a voice Nancy barely recognized. Both targets eliminated. Rodriguez died in the cabin fire. Morrison was shot trying to escape. A voice on the other end, speaking rapid Indonesian. Yes, I'm certain. I saw the bodies myself. More conversation. Hawthorne nodded, though the caller couldn't see him. Payment as agreed. Yes. This concludes our arrangement. He hung up, looked at Nancy. It's done. Nancy stopped the recording. Thank you. What happens now? Now you face the consequences. Like the rest of us have been doing for 27 years. Footsteps in the hallway. Professional, coordinated. FBI. Nancy and Jake moved to the window. Phoenix had arranged their exit through the adjoining room. Nancy, Hawthorne called. She stopped, looked back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Tell that to Tommy's widow. Maria's kids. Bobby's parents. Nancy opened the window to the adjoining room. Tell that to the families you destroyed. The door burst open as Nancy and Jake disappeared through the window. FBI agents flooded in, weapons drawn. Colonel Richard Hawthorne, you're under arrest. Outside, Nancy and Jake walked through the hotel parking garage, rain falling steadily, washing the city clean. Think it's over? Jake asked. The Indonesian operation is blown. Hawthorne's arrested. The surviving Neptune operatives are safe. Nancy got into their car. It's over. What now? Nancy started the engine. Now we go home. To your diner? If there's anything left of it. Nancy smiled for the first time in days. Might be time to rebuild. They drove through the early morning darkness toward a new dawn and whatever came next. That's the complete story of Nancy Rodriguez and Operation Neptune. A retired intelligence officer who discovered that some battles never truly end, but sometimes that's exactly what makes them worth fighting. If you enjoyed Nancy's story, hit that like button and subscribe for more military stories that honor the men and women who serve in silence. Drop a comment below. Are you a veteran yourself? Have you ever had to confront ghosts from your past? I read every comment and love hearing your stories. Share this video with someone who appreciates tales of courage, loyalty, and second chances. These stories matter, and your support helps me keep telling them. Until next time, remember that heroes come in all ages, and it's never too late to do the right thing.